Tell us about your background and role with Vertex.
Certainly. So my role at Vertex is to enhance your interaction that you have with your utility. And the way I do that is I work with a highly talented team to migrate utilities from the existing applications onto our software as a service solution. And once we've migrated them onto our platform and they're operating it, we act as an extension of their IT team so that they can focus on running a utility and we can focus on the IT business. And in addition to operating their IT applications, I work with the same team to develop and grow a roadmap of new features and functions which we can rapidly deploy for our customers.
What's driving this latest cycle of CIS replacements?
Utilities embark on replacing a CIS when the risk of effectively operating and maintaining their current CIS exceeds that of a replacement for the CIS program. And I think in today's current conditions, that risk profile has increased. So we have to look at what those risk drivers are. And I would say one of them is aging platforms. The CIS is a critical application of a utility. And if there's a failure, almost all aspects of the utility are impacted. The inability to recover from a failure, be it a batch program that failed the night before, or an infrastructure failure is a valid concern. And associated with those aging platforms is having the staff on hand to support those and recover those. So that's certainly one risk driver. The other is, Amazon and Uber have certainly set a standard which utilities need to match. And this has driven a number of needs to increase the functionality of current CIS applications. In addition, CIS applications can no longer operate as standalone systems, and therefore there needs to be integration with a number of supporting systems.
Speak to the tug-of-war between standardization and customization.
It's a difficult ask for project team members to stick to standard or stay within the box and not customize. And I think to encourage or limit the amount of customization, you have to have a methodology that supports that. And when you are designing a process on a whiteboard where you only have the legacy processes and legacy systems as a frame of reference, it's really easy to insist on a number of customizations. When you have a working system that has processes that may be different to what you execute today, however the data within them you can relate to, it becomes easier for project participants to visualize how their job will be with the new application. And therefore you can, naturally you're reducing the amount of customizations just because it becomes a working design session rather than a whiteboarding session.
Talk about faster, better, cheaper.
What's key to achieving faster, better, cheaper is not necessarily increasing timelines, managing scope, and adding more people. It's really looking at the key risks that are present with CIS replacements and asking what changes can I do to my methodology to address those risks. Rather than wait for a month or 3/4 of the implementation to complete before tackling your principal data migration risk, let's start with that risk and address that head on. Let's demonstrate proven practices using data that customers are familiar with to address organizational change management and organizational adoption risks. Let's start with a pre-built or a working CIS application so that we can spend more time transacting on migrated data and doing parallel type testing rather than waiting 3/4 to the implementation before we actually start that effort.
How are you mitigating the risks?
Integrations and interfacing applications is a valid replacement risk, and I would argue that with the requirements to interface with more applications, each implementation that we do, it's a risk that's continually increasing. To mitigate that risk, you need to start, much like data migration, you need to start the process of building and completing those interfaces early on in the project. And in order to do that, you need a working CIS application. So rather than spending your resources, time and efforts on designing a ground-up design and then asking how would you like the system to work, let's start with a pre-built working CIS, demonstrate those processes with data that you're familiar with, and ask why it won't work for you. This enables you to start the interface testing and the interface process and working with third-party vendors way earlier in the program rather than waiting until the application is built to start that process.
How do you shorten the time to implementation?
The way I like to address that risk is to view the implementation as one project within an overall program. And what you can do is you can reduce the timelines and go live with the functionality that the business is ready for and requires at that time. And then once your operations and operating and live, you can continually roll out and incrementally add functionality.
How do you manage the risks of being in the cloud?
I think cloud is not new. It has been around a long time, and we're all consumers of it and comfortable with it in a number of our other applications. I think utilities, given the requirements to integrate with so many other applications, as well as it exposes them to so many new security vulnerabilities. I think securities are fast recognizing that they are very good at running utilities, and there's a whole industry that is focused on information technology and keeping data safe. And I think we saw this with the credit card industry and the payments industry. At one stage, all utilities wanted to own and process their own payments. Very quickly, that became something that no utility wanted to own. And leave to the payment professionals